Welcome back to Newsday. Now, the apparent disregard for internal democracy by a good number of political parties gunning for power in the forthcoming general election has become an issue of great concern for a lot of Nigerians, particularly for due process advocates and the civil society government. The general argument among this segment of Nigerians is that party democracy, or the lack thereof, carries the propensity to make or mar Nigeria's leadership selection process in 2023. Achike Chude is a good governance advocate and front-line civil society activist. He joins us now. Achike, it's good to have you with us.
Always good to be here.
All right. Now, disregard for internal democracy and candidates Nigerians are currently stuck with, if I may use that, to have to choose from. What are the implications here?
Yeah, the implications, if I would remember a statement by the late great Dr. Tunji Braithwaite. He said that people that have not mastered the art of putting worthy people in power will end up with charlatans, criminals, and rogues, as political leaders. And so when you look at a country that has been over 60 years in the making, blessed with all manners of resources, human and natural, wallowing in the pit of poverty, 133 million people from the latest statistics by the National Bureau of Statistics, National Bureau of Statistics, it tells you a lot about what has happened in the country and what the country has lost, obviously. And of course, you would always hold, they say, to whom much is given, much is expected. So you hold the people with the greatest level of responsibility, hold them responsible for the chaos and the crisis that the Nigerian state is going through. And to some extent, again, the people cannot be exonerated, because we are told somewhere that the price we have to pay for democracy is eternal vigilance. The Nigerian people have not been vigilant. They've not been watching over their democracy. Of course, there are all kinds of reasons for that. Poverty, illiteracy, divisions. Again, divisions perpetrated by the same, political class, who are one-dimensional, in their thinking when it comes to personal gratification. And so they will play parochial politics, keep the people divided so that the questions that need to be asked will not be asked. And so we see this also manifest with regards to, internal party democracy. We see, again, essentially because we have not created institutions. We have strong men, or so-called strong men. I want to use the word so-called strong men. Because I think there used to be this old billboard in those days with the message, power is nothing without control. I think it was describing the Pirelli tire. So you have power, you have political power. What do you do with the power? If ultimately you have responsibility over a vast number of people, and then you cannot talk about the welfare of those people, you cannot talk about a better life for those people, and yet you have handled so much resources on behalf of the people, then that is useless power. You have not been able to do anything meaningful with it. And so we see this play out with regards to politics of this country, internal, party democracy. We have been talking about it for so long, over the years in Nigeria. And I was listening to watching one interesting program this morning on the same issue. And I think what, this morning's program was even more apt and more vivid because it brought it to our doorsteps, the experiences people are going through. And I think the representative, somebody that wants to go for House of Representatives, one Ugochukwu Uzoma, who was muzzled out by the powers that be in Imo State. I think it's from the Abombise constituency. And it was sad because you could feel the pain in him. The politicians do this and they get away with it and they pat themselves on the back, believing that they are smart and they are wise. It's not wisdom to be unjust. It's not wisdom to be given power and to do nothing meaningful, with that power. These are people that are parochial, small-minded or narrow-minded, people without vision, people who do not have a proper look at humanity. And so there is no humanity within themselves. And that's why they are willing to dish out injustice, to the rest of the society. And what is the outcome? And so if you see these small pockets like what happened in Abombise with this Dr. Uzoma, you see these small pockets of injustice. They add to the big, great injustice that we have in the country. And what is the outcome of that injustice? A country in chaos, instability, there is no peace, insecurity everywhere, and poverty, assailing the land. This is as a result of all of this, but it all starts from the grassroots, the lack of internal party democracy, because the people that are practicing it are supposed to be the very best among us, who will attend positions of leadership. So if from the very little, you begin to show these acts of injustice, ultimately at the end of the day, the question you ask is, what kind of people are those that are calling the shots over our lives?
A very profound question indeed, but I want to shift the conversation to, shall I say, attempts to level the playing field. Everybody celebrated the Electoral Act 2022 when it came out because it brought about a hope, and I specifically use the word hope because, not sure if it's really translating yet into what it was envisioned to be, but there's a hope of electoral reform. I'd like to focus on Section 84, subsection 8, which deals with trying to remove the practice of anointing and appointing candidates, which we now see has not been dealt with. We see that there were so many loopholes, and apart from there being loopholes for candidates still being anointed and appointed by various means within parties, you see some who've gone through the court process, and somebody like Lade Adebotu of Osun State, for example, just on the 1st of December was confirmed as a candidate. What can you really achieve in terms of campaigns in 80 days to an election? So in your thoughts, the Electoral Act and its various sections, have they done justice to the hope that people had in a level playing field for the electoral process?
Limited justice. I mean, you're talking about the not too young to run bill. Act now, that makes it possible for anybody within a particular, time age limit to vie to have political ambition and to vie for election. So as a policy document, it is good. We can work with that. But in terms of the practicality, the reality on ground, where you have a political system that is heavily monetized, where you have, money bags calling the shots across the length and breadth of the country, it becomes exceedingly difficult, for young people who do not have so much money, who have not stolen from the polity, to be able to express themselves in the democratic process. And so maybe to some extent, if there's a redeeming feature, of the whole of this, we could say, well, we are still evolving. Nigeria is still transiting. We still have some ways to go, but that is not to give excuses for our failures. So when you have laws, usually policies, laws, yes, they are good because they are legal documents that you can use also for the purpose of advocacy, for the purpose of agitation, for the purpose of making a case. But that in itself, that is not enough in itself. We also have that concerns the journalists, the Freedom of Information, Act in itself. You have to, these things don't activate themselves. They have to be activated by the human, person. So you take it to court, you make a case for it. Of course, you take it to a ministry, for instance, to a government institution, you demand to see certain information and they refuse to give it to you, go to the court. So if you keep it, the people obviously are not bothered. It doesn't concern them. It's in their interest not to do anything about that. That's why I talked about democracy and eternal vigilance. So it's part of what we need to do, that you have to continue to agitate so that, we could have more positive tones in the country. So yes, the Electoral Act is good. We all celebrated it. We all worked for it. We all pushed for it. And we're very, very upset the very first time the president, after delaying for so long, I think before the 2019 election, I said there was no time. It's what the politicians do. So hopefully, this time around, it was signed into law amidst plenty of fanfare and the rest. But that does not resolve all of the issues that we have to do with the election. Because sometimes when new laws are made, it brings about new challenges. And so you need to also realize that, okay, this has solved these issues, these issues, but it has created, or we did not foresee that it was going to create something like this. And so you realize that, yes, we also need to tinker with this. So it's the same thing with the Constitution. People will refer to the Constitution as a living document. So I mean, I say you move into new era, of civilization, whatever you call it, as you move into a new phase in your life or in the life of a country, and new realities emerge, then you have to confront these realities in so many ways. And part of it is to seek for amendment, and all that. So this is part of it. So it's an ongoing process. Like I said, these issues will arise, and when they arise, you do your best to tackle them. And we can't sleep. We can't sleep because the politicians, for instance, I mean, we're talking about the election, are not sleeping. They are very devious, and a lot of them. And for me, I've always described them as a class of people that are not committed. They lack vision. They are not patriotic, and we have seen that because you can't look at a country of 220 million people, and people are telling you, and the reason they are giving for the deep morass we are facing in this country is that we have so much in terms of population. That's not true. Population is an asset, and that is why we are told that in the next 30, 40, 50 years or so, Nigeria, Africa, we have 25% of global youthful population. And so if we can get it right politically in Africa, Africa will dominate, Africa will rule the world. That is the power of population, because it's strength, and not weakness.
Hopefully the good people are taking into consideration what you've just mentioned. Achike, Chude, civil society activists, I'd like to thank you very much for your thoughts on those issues. Good to have you with us. We could go on and on, but as you know,
I'm ready.
We'll just end here.
No, we have to call it a day.
We'd like to thank you very much for
all
coming.
good things come to an end.
Indeed.